when I was at Google Ventures, I spent a lot of time working with CEOs or heads of product. And it was kind of interesting because when you meet, you basically are eating breakfast and having coffees with people all the time. It's a really pleasant job. And so you sit down with coffee with a CEO, and my title when I was at Google Ventures was design partner. So it literally had the word design in the title. And so when you sit down for a coffee and you say, hey, so, what are your challenges? The first things that would come out of their mouths were design, at least how they understood design, right, as CEOs. And I'm sure this is familiar to everyone here who's a designer, is you to hear about things like, we have this really challenging user interface problem. We are trying to merge two products, and we're not sure how our information architecture makes sense between them. We're having a hard time hiring a senior, head of design. And it was really interesting. I like those problems. I'm a designer. But if you stopped, and this is my kind of magic question when I work with CEOs, I would just say, okay, those are really interesting, and we can talk about those in a minute, but what keeps you up at night? None of those problems. It's almost never those problems. I've never met a CEO who's kept up at night by trying to figure out whether or not they should have a bottom nav or a hamburger navigation in their mobile menu. Even though that might be what they brought up. My team's been arguing about this. Whatever, that's not the big issues in the business. The big issues in the business are, we're moving into a new market, we're not sure customers are going to want it. We are trying to grow from a mid-sized business into an enterprise business. Those customers are very different. We don't know if we can cater to them. I'm having a really hard time recruiting and retaining talent. You're a CEO of a company now. You get these problems, right? Oh, we're dealing with government regulation. How do we manage that and a product roadmap at the same time? These are the things that keep CEOs up at night. But it's really interesting because you can reframe a lot of these as design problems. And I don't mean design problems like, oh, only the designers can go solve these problems. This is an arrogant design attitude. And you see it in some places like, oh, just give every fucking problem to design, give us a seat at the table and we'll solve it. But it's more like if you sit down with the head of HR and talk about, the CEO told me that one of our biggest challenges as a business is recruiting engineers because the big Facebooks and Apples and Googles keep beating us to talent. We can't offer as much money. How do we get talent? Well, your HR team's going to say, well, okay, here's what our recruiting pipeline looks like. Here's where we go. And you can sit down with HR and figure out, okay, when a prospective hire comes to our website or interacts with one of our people at an event, what is their reaction to us? You can use user research to find out more about this problem. You can use design to improve the design of the jobs pages. All of us right now are shipping off our recruiting pages to some third-party SaaS startup that just lets us upload things. Who knows what people really think when they land there? They don't know your company. They know what Apple is when they're going to hire at Apple. But your company, they have some different perception of it. If you can figure these problems out and potentially redesign them with the HR team, with the engineers who are doing interviews, well, now you can solve that problem together. And so I see design in many ways for these types of problems as a facilitator. You don't have to solve the problem, but design techniques that we know of cut through a lot of the uncertainty. And you notice a lot of these things are around how little we know about our customers. And designers are very good at taking ambiguity like that. We're driving through the fog, and everyone's terrified. Well, how can I shine a light out into the fog and see a little bit further? Design's very good at this, and to me, that's one very good way for design to get away from window dressing and into the core things that really matter to a business. But you have to care about these problems yourself. You have to believe that these are design problems.